Rain hammered the leaky roof like angry fists, each drop echoing Aaliyah's heartache as she huddled in the dim corner of their cramped apartment. The 12-year-old black girl clutched a faded photo of her grandmother, tears blurring the smiling face while her aunt's voice cracked in the next room, begging the bill collector, "Please, just one more week. I swear we'll pay." Aaliyah wiped her eyes, remembering the day everything shattered. A year ago, her grandma had collapsed in this very spot, her body weakened by an illness they couldn't afford to fight. The hospital bills had piled up like mountains, forcing them into this run-down building in the heart of the city's forgotten edges. Now, eviction notices stuck to the door like scars, and her aunt worked double shifts just to keep the lights on that morning. Aaliyah trudged through graffiti-scarred streets to her underfunded school, the kind where paint peeled from walls and books were older than the teachers. Bullies snickered at her threadbare clothes, one shoving her shoulder with a mocking laugh. "Look at Rag's girl Bet. She sleeps in a box." Aaliyah bit her lip, head down, humiliation burning her cheeks. She dreamed of a better life, far from the shadows of poverty that loomed over her like storm clouds, while just blocks away, skyscrapers gleamed with the wealth of strangers. Back home that afternoon, rummaging through her grandma's old box for comfort, Aaliyah's fingers brushed an envelope she hadn't noticed before. Inside was a worn bank card and a note in shaky handwriting for your future check when ready. Her heart skipped. What could it mean? A few dollars? Enough for groceries? Hope flickered, fragile as a candle in the wind, but doubt whispered back, what if it was empty, just like everything else? She couldn't tell her aunt, not yet. The woman was already crumbling, pleading with the landlord over the phone. "We're trying. Sir, please don't throw us out." Aaliyah slipped the card into her pocket, her pulse racing. Sneaking out the back door, she dodged the nosy neighbor who eyed her suspiciously from his stoop. "Where are you off to, kid?" he grumbled. She didn't answer, hurrying through the rain-slicked alleys, the city's bustle growing louder, honking cars, laughing crowds and fancy shops she could never enter. The Grand Bank building rose before her like a giant made of glass and steel, its lights mocking her soaked sneakers and dripping coat. Aaliyah stared up, whispering, "What if it's nothing?" Just then, a sleek luxury car purred to a stop, and a sharply dressed man stepped out, his eyes locking on her with curious amusement. Aaliyah's heart pounded as she pushed through the heavy glass doors, the bank's marble lobby swallowing her like a glittering cave, its shine blinding against her rain-soaked clothes. A kind-faced teller behind the counter spotted her hesitation and leaned forward with a soft smile. "Lost, honey. Can I help you find something?" The air inside was crisp and cold, scented with polished wood and faint perfume from suited customers tapping away on phones. Aaliyah glanced around, her eyes wide at the divide. Wealthy clients whisked into private rooms with leather chairs, while folks like her shuffled in a long line for the tellers. It reminded her of Grandma's stories, whispered at bedtime, about scrubbing floors for rich families, her back aching but her spirit unbroken. "They live in castles, baby," Grandma had said, "but we Gothards they can't buy." What sacrifices had she hidden? Aaliyah clutched the old envelope tighter, her sneakers squeaking on the spotless floor. She joined the line, nerves twisting like knots. What if the card was worthless? But dreams flickered, maybe enough for anti-spills or a real dinner without scraping pennies. The wait dragged, minutes ticking like a bomb. Finally, at the counter, Aaliyah slid the faded card forward, hands trembling. I just need to check the balance," she whispered. Voice barely above the hum of machines, the teller, a middle-aged woman with warm brown eyes, nodded compassionately. "Of course, sweetie. Got any ID? This looks old, might take a sec." Aaliyah fumbled for her school badge, the only thing she had. The teller typed it in, but the screen froze, the spinning wheel mocking them. "The system's slowed today," she murmured apologetically. "Hang tight." Behind Aaliyah, the door swung open again. The man from the luxury car, Victor Harlan, sharp-suited real estate tycoon with a reputation for bulldozing neighborhoods like her, strode in, his expensive watch glinting. He joined the line impatiently, muttering about wasting time on trivial deals. Aaliyah felt his presence like a shadow, her doubts crashing back. What was she doing here? A kid in this world of giants? The teller tried again, keys clacking. Aaliyah's mind raced, medical bills stacking up, the eviction looming. Hope whispered, fragile and new, but fear clawed at it. What if it was zero? The screen flickered to life, numbers appearing slowly. The teller's brow furrowed. This can't be right, she said under her breath, eyes widening. Victor, eavesdropping, let out a dismissive chuckle that echoed like thunder, making Aaliyah freeze in place. Victor's laugh sliced through the lobby like a blade. Little girl playing banker? Cute, he sneered, loud enough for the entire line to hear. Lines are for real business, sweetheart. Run along. Aaliyah's cheeks burned hotter than the summer pavement outside. Heads turned, some smirking, some looking away in pity. She wanted the marble floor to crack open and swallow her whole. But then Grandma's voice whispered in her memory, "Stand tall, baby. They only laugh when they're scared of what you might become." The teller shot Victor a sharp glance. "Sir, everyone waits their turn." Victor rolled his eyes, then hurried up. "Some of us have actual money to move." The teller pressed a button under the counter. Moments later, a manager in a crisp navy suit appeared, apology already on his lips. "There's a security flag on this account," he said quietly. "We need to verify in the back. It'll just take 5 minutes." 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. While they waited, Aaliyah's eyes drifted to an elderly black woman 2 spots behind her, silver hair pulled into a neat bun, clutching a small purse like it held her whole life. The woman caught her gaze and gave a tiny nod, the kind only people who've been counted out their whole lives understand. "You hold your ground, baby girl," she whispered as she passed. "God sees who's really standing tall." Victor kept talking, loud and bragging, about the new luxury towers he was raising right over neighborhoods like Aaliyah's. Progress, he called it. Every word felt like another brick on her chest. Finally, the manager returned, face unreadable. He leaned close to the teller and murmured something Aaliyah couldn't catch. The teller's fingers froze above the keyboard. Victor pushed forward, elbowing past the velvet rope. "Let me speed this along," he said with a sharp smile. "Hurry up, kid. Show us your pennies." The teller swallowed hard, turned the monitor just slightly toward Aaliyah, and hit enter one last time. The numbers began to load. Slowly, line by line, and the manager whispered, "Pull up the full account now." The screen blinked once, twice, then the first line of numbers appeared. Victor leaned over the counter, ready to mock whatever tiny amount showed up. "Go on, kid," he laughed, voice dripping poison. "Let's all see how many cans you recycled." Aaliyah stared at the monitor, breath stuck in her throat. The teller's eyes widened. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. Victor's grin faltered. He shoved closer, expensive cologne choking the air. "What is it, $20? $50. He craned his neck. "Come on, show the final digits locked into place. $14,872,441.03. Silence crashed over the lobby like a wave. Phones stopped scrolling. The security guard's jaw dropped. Even the marble seemed to hold its breath. Victor's face drained of color. The laugh died in his throat and came out a strangled cough. That's impossible," he sputtered. Aaliyah couldn't move. The numbers blurred through fresh tears. 14 million. Her grandma, the woman who cleaned their houses, who took buses at 4 a.m., had left her $14 million. The teller found her voice first. "Baby, this is real. It's been growing for 12 years. Tech stock your grandmother bought with every extra dime." Victor recovered fast. Too fast. His eyes turned sharp, greedy. He forced a chuckle, but it sounded hollow now. "Obviously some mistake," he said loudly, waving a manicured hand. "Poor kid probably found a lost card." "Run it again." The manager stepped forward, voice firm. "Sir, step back. This account is verified. Biometric match, handwritten will, everything." Aaliyah finally spoke, voice small but steady. "I just want to see my balance," she said again, the same words Victor had mocked minutes ago. This time no one laughed. The elderly woman from the line started clapping, slow and proud. Others joined. A few phones lifted, recording. Victor's face twisted rage, envy, fear, all fighting for space closing. Parenthesis. The teller reached across the counter and squeezed Aaliyah's shaking hand. Welcome to your future, sweetheart. Victor opened his mouth to speak again, but the screen flashed a new alert. Red letters. Account lock. Pending legal review. Guardianship dispute. A new voice boomed from the lobby doors. Hold everything. A man in an expensive suit barked, waving papers. That money belongs to my client. Stop the transaction now. Victor spun toward the voice, and for the first time all day, he smiled like he'd just won the war. Asterisk, the rain soaked Aaliyah's coat the second she stepped outside, but she barely felt it. $14 million. 14 million lies now trying to steal it. She ran the whole way home. Sneakers slapping puddles, the lawyer's words chasing her like dogs, ward of the state, reverts to adult kin. Frozen. By the time she burst through the apartment door, her aunt was already on the phone, voice shaking. They called me from the bank. Baby, what is going on? Aaliyah dropped to her knees in front of the old shoebox under Grandma's bed and pulled out the leather journal she'd never dared open before. Page after page, in careful, tired handwriting, put $22 into the tech fund today's kipped lunch. Bought 50 more shares. One day, my grandbaby won't have to scrub floors like me. Every entry ended the same. For Aaliyah. Only Aaliyah. Her aunt read over her shoulder and started crying so hard the pages shook. That night, Victor Harlan sat in the back of his silent car outside their building. Watching the windows glow, he dialed a number. Change of plans, he said quietly. I knew her grandmother. She worked for my father 30 years ago. Thought those shares were worthless scraps. Turns out the old woman outsmarted us all. Pause. I want that money. Make it happen. Next morning, a black SUV parked across the street. Two men in suits watched the apartment like hawks. Aaliyah clutched the journal against her chest as she and her aunt walked to the courthouse for the emergency hearing. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Someone had leaked the story overnight. Little girl vs. Millionaire. And the whole city was watching, inside the cold hallway. Victor was already waiting, smiling like he owned the building because half of it he actually did. He stepped close, voice low and poisonous. Last chance, kid. Sign the release. I'll give your family $100 grand and a new house. Fight me and I'll drag this out until you're old and gray. Aaliyah looked up at him, rain still drying in her braids. Eyes red from no sleep. My grandma cleaned your family's toilets for 20 years. She said, loud enough for the reporters to hear. She left me every penny she saved doing it. You're not taking one. Victor's smile froze. The bailiff opened the courtroom doors. All rise. Aaliyah walked in, 12 years old, soaked journal in hand, and the cameras followed. Victor followed too, but for the first time all week. He was the one sweating. The judge wasn't in yet. The doors closed with a heavy thud, and somewhere in the hallway, a phone buzzed with a single text Victor never expected. We found the original stock certificates. Signed over to the girl the day she was born. You're done. The screen on the bailiff's desk blinked. Read new evidence submitted. Victor saw it. His face went the color of old ash. Aaliyah never saw him. Smile again. The courtroom smelled of old wood and fear. Aaliyah sat rigid between her aunt and a court-appointed lawyer who kept whispering, just breathe. Honey, across the aisle. Victor Harlan looked untouchable in a charcoal suit that cost more than their rent for 10 years. The lawyer he'd brought the same one from the bank, smirked every time he caught Aaliyah's eye. The judge, a tired-eyed black woman with silver streaks in her braids, flipped through the new evidence the bailiff had, just handed her. Her eyebrows climbed higher with every page. Victor leaned over to his lawyer and hissed, "This is a stunt. Bury it." But the judge wasn't burying anything. "Mr. Harlan," she said. Voice calm as steel approached the bench. "Now." Victor stood, smile still glued on. But his hands shook as he walked forward. The The courtroom went dead quiet. The judge held up a single yellowed document, Grandma's original stock purchase, signed the day Aaliyah was born. Then another transfer papers, witnessed by a notary, naming Aaliyah sole beneficiary, then the journal. Every entry stamped, dated, and now notarized overnight by a retired judge who had once been Grandma's neighbor. This court finds overwhelming evidence, the judge said, that Mrs. Evelyn Carter intended every cent for her granddaughter. The claim of kinship by the second cousin is, she glanced at the lawyer, conveniently filed the same week Mr. Harlan's company tried to purchase those exact shares at pennies on the dollar 30 years ago. Victor's mask cracked. Your Honor, this is sit down. Mr. Harlan, he said. The judge turned to Aaliyah. Young lady, the account is yours. Full access, no guardianship required. Congratulations. The gavel cracked like thunder. Aaliyah's aunt pulled her into a hug so tight she couldn't breathe, both of them sobbing into each other's shoulders while reporters scrambled and cameras flashed. Victor didn't move. He just stared at the floor, the color of a man watching his empire burn. 2 weeks later, the same bank lobby looked different. Sunlight poured through the glass instead of cold fluorescent light. Aaliyah walked in wearing new sneakers that actually fit, her aunt beside her holding a checkbook that still felt like a dream. First thing they did was pay every medical bill Grandma ever owed. The second was set up college. Funds for every kid in their old building. The third was buy the whole block, not to tear it down, but to fix the roofs, paint the walls, and turn the cracked courtyard into a garden Grandma would have loved. Victor Harlan never came back to that branch. Word was he lost 3 buildings, 2 lawsuits, and most of his reputation the day a 12-year-old girl taught the city what justice really looks like. Aaliyah stood at the teller window one last time, looking at the balance that now read a little less. Because giving felt better than owning, she smiled, small and fierce, and whispered to the same kind teller who'd helped her that rainy day, Grandma always said real wealth is what you do when nobody's forcing you to share. The teller teared up and nodded outside. The city kept moving, some parts still broken, some parts healing, but on that corner, a little black girl who once only wanted to see her balance walked out knowing she'd just changed the view for everyone behind her, and somewhere up above, Evelyn Carter was smiling wider than any millionaire ever could. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to remember that dignity always wins in the end. And I'll see you in the next one. The garden bloomed where the cracked courtyard used to bleed weeds. A year after the gavel fell, Aaliyah, now 13 and a full head taller, stood under strings of fairy lights, watching kids chase each other between new benches painted bright yellow. The same building that once leaked on her pillow now had fresh paint, new windows, and a mural of Grandma Evelyn smiling down from the brick. Inside apartment to be. Their new home, twice the size, same neighbors. The table was covered with college acceptance letters and thank you cards. Aaliyah's aunt, healthy again, laughed loud enough to shake the walls. While cooking Sunday dinner for half the block, a knock came at the door. Aaliyah opened it to find a man in a cheap suit, hat in his hands. Victor Harlan looked 10 years older, eyes hollow, tie crooked. He couldn't meet her gaze. The bankruptcy judge said, I had to apologize in person, he mumbled, and pay the restitution. He held out an envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for $2 million, the exact amount he'd tried to steal through shell companies. Aaliyah took it. Calm. You can come in if you want, she said. We've got plenty of food. Victor shook his head fast. I don't deserve no, she cut in gently. You don't. But Grandma always said second chances aren't earned, they're given. That's how you know they're real. He finally looked up, tears shining. I was wrong. About everything, Aaliyah nodded once. Then be better starting today. She closed the door softly, no anger left in her. Later that night, she stood on the roof, the same spot where Grandma used to hang laundry and dream out loud. City lights glittered like the balance she once prayed just to see. She opened the old leather journal to the very last page. Grandma had written before she got too sick. If you ever get scared, baby, remember, money comes and goes. Dignity is the only balance that never drops to zero. Spend that first. Aaliyah smiled, pressed the journal to her heart, and whispered into the night sky, I did, Grandma, and I'm still spending it, somewhere down below. Children laughed in the garden she'd built, somewhere across the city. A man who once laughed at a little girl in wet sneakers started volunteering on weekends, fixing roofs for people he used to evict, and somewhere inside every person watching this story right now, a quiet voice says, if a 12-year-old who had nothing can change everything with nothing but truth and love, what could you change today? Hit that subscribe button if you believe second chances and big miracles still happen. Share this with someone who needs to remember that the poorest kid in the room might just end up owning the whole sky. And I'll see you in the next story because there are millions more out there waiting to be told. Keep your dignity, keep your heart, and never, ever let them laugh you out of your blessing. See you soon.